is a 2-week conversation, to be bold. The depth of CNC knowledge and tooling is something that it's a very deep pond. So why I wanted to do this is I wanted to jump in to actually help the industry on understanding the basics of CNC tooling, ROI, efficiency. I want to keep this very interactive. So what I am going to do is I'm going to jump in and actually go through a very quick PowerPoint. That PowerPoint is going to be as quick as I can make it. But what I am looking for is to keep this interactive. So as you guys have questions, please feel free to interrupt. Please feel free to step in. I also have some of my, it looks like 2 or 3 of my salespeople are involved with this as well. And they're using this as a training, also to guide and assist customers, etc. I want to make this very, very clear up front that I am not here representing Terminator Diamond Products. You're going to see Terminator products, Terminator images on my PowerPoint. But what you're going to see is you're going to actually, this is more about, we'll call it industry standard, general. And I wanted to keep this way of just assisting in CNC. It does not matter the brand of CNC tools you're using, the vendors you're related to, etc. I wanted to take this advantage to actually help our industry move forward. So if you guys are ready, I can kick off my PowerPoint. So I wanted to kind of kick this off. So this is going to go fairly quick for everybody here. So CNC Tooling Solutions, looking at best practices. I was a fabricator for 18 plus years. I currently am the vice president of Terminator Diamond Products. I've been our vice president for about 3.5 years now. I've got 25 years in stone. I was a fabricator. I started in 2002 as a sawyer when I was fresh out of the Marine Corps. Worked my way up, CNC operator, inline operator, shipping manager, shop manager, all the way up. With that being said, a lot of what I'm going to talk today about is not brand specific. That a lot of times you almost have a general following with what we're doing. And I wanted to stay away from Terminator first, or ADI or Vincent or Diamut. I want to stay away from the brand recognition because it's not about that. So really what it comes down to is it's a very unique perspective for myself, and I see this in shops every week, to start as a fabricator, to understand, growing up in that 2 to 3 inches of water, slopping around in mud, all the way up to the vice president of a vendor company that can supply and assist. So what I've done here, guys, for all of you is my email and direct phone number is on the screen. I'm going to keep it there just for a second so anyone can take a screenshot or a photo. We are recording the session, so we can send out the recordings to you. But if you have individual questions that you don't want to bring up today, please feel free to reach out to me directly. I will set up a Teams meeting or Zoom meeting directly with you so we can talk through your questions, concerns, if we can assist new innovation, technology, etc. I do want to stop just for a second and thank ISFA. I always tell this quick story about ISFA, that Terminator Diamond Products, Continental Diamond, is involved in almost every stone fabrication group in North America. With that being said, I was invited to attend ISFA's annual event last year in Arizona. And as I was in that event, most organizations will avoid a lot of the hard subjects. And I wanted to give a shout out to ISFA, is that what I watched that day is I truly found an organization that cares about the fabricator, that cares about giving answers to people that have them. So a huge shout out to Joe and his team, Julie, Lori, Kinani, you guys are doing a great job. Keep it up, and anything that we can do to help, we're there. So this is the basis of our webinar. So I wanted to talk about tooling choices and how it plays a critical role in your shop efficiency. I'm not going to just read the slides. What this means is basically, I want to jump right in. This is something that's been hitting our industry pretty hard, even in the last 5 years. So what I did was I actually searched for a fact that can prove this. A lot of what we see in the market and industry is feel, it's emotion. I wanted facts to be able to give to you guys. So in 2020, out of the 10,869 active shops, fabrication facilities registered, we'll say it that way, there's probably many, many more, that have joined into, what you'll see is that in 2020, 28.6% of shops owned CNC routers. Now, were they utilizing them? That's going to be a little bit of a variable. As of December of 2025, 44.6% have CNC routers. Really, we can look at this in any way, shape, or form, but we all know that our industry is losing the skilled labor that has been brought in, the professionalism, the background, the CNC operators, the sawyers that actually have tenured experience in this industry. So, from labor shortages, skill labor shortages, AI technology is assisting this industry. It's how we utilize that technology that's going to define who we are. Tooling innovation, speeds and feeds. I mean, right now in the last 5 years, the standard speed of CNC tools have tripled. Changing global market. So how fast we're required in the market that's developed. So I wanted to kind of set a standard here, guys, for everybody to see this, that's a huge jump in 5 years. That you're talking nearly 50% of all registered fabricators in the United States have a router. That's a huge stat. So really what I do is a lot of what I'm going to talk about today, guys, is how I train our team with Terminator Diamond. I always talk about the 3 sweet spots. And for my sales staff that are on, they're probably smiling right now because they've heard me say this 10 times. There's really 3 sweet spots to any tool or fabrication facility. It's a sweet spot to every tool. Any fabricator out there knows what I'm talking about, whether it be a feed rate or an RPM that is perfect for that tool. There's also a sweet spot to each machine, whether it be an RPM of an arbor, minimizing backlash, utilizing, your rails, your X, Y, and your Z profiles, your what hardness level. But I think the one sweet spot that is always overlooked in a fab shop is the sweet spot of your culture. I can sell you any tool that you ask me to. Does that mean it's going to work perfectly for you? No, it doesn't. What it means is I can sell you the tool you request, but what information did you use to reach it? How do you want to run your shop? I use sawyers as an example. So sawyers is, you always have really 2 types of sawyers, and there's rarely any in between. There's someone that's afraid of the machine. And everybody, the fabricator, I see 2 or 3 of you guys nodding. It's a sawyer will walk in with a blade, and they want to do 80 inches a minute, even though it was tested at 320 inches a minute. But they feel safe at 80 inches a minute. Or you have the cowboy. And the cowboy is willing to take a blade that's tested at 300 inches a minute and run it 400 till sparks are flying. It's a rare in between. And it's the culture of how you decide to run your shop that's the most important sweet spot we need to find. So a lot of what I talk about today is going to be decisions that you need to make in your shop, whether it be a brand recognition, bond hardness, diamond use, speeds, feeds. It's all dependent on how you want to maintain your shop. So what are you looking for? This is the biggest thing, and this is probably one of the most important screens that I'm going to share. So these are the defining questions that you need to ask yourself. Are you looking for the longevity of tool? Do you care about the ease of maintenance, the ease of use, how easy this tool is to maintain, and speeds, feeds? What is cost? The most important factor. This is one of the biggest challenges on the vendor side, is developing tools or innovating tools that meet multiple of these to be able to give you the best tool we can for the lowest cost possible. This is one of the things that we really do. So one of the biggest things that I've been picking up really since COVID, since about 2020, 2021, that's been changing in our market is the relationships with the vendors. Is where it was in 2002, and not to age myself, but way back when I was a young whippersnapper straight out of the Marine Corps, is every rep that used to walk into my location, if I asked, hey, what speed or feed is the best for this tool, even a sales rep could answer it, and they would assist the setup, and they would back everything that they're saying with performance of the tool. Today, I've seen a very big change in that. Is as we lose that knowledge base in our fabrication facilities, we're also losing it on the vendor side. So about 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, any of my guys can step up and answer this. It's about 2.5 years ago. We had a mission statement at Continental Diamond that was like everyone else's. We sell a quality tool at a quality price at a best cutting edge customer service. To be bold, for those of you that don't know me, is I don't have a lot of BS, and all of that is garbage. Is we all sell a good product. We all try our best to sell it at the best price we can. We all try to do the best customer service we can. So as a mission statement, how does that define who we are as a company? So 2.5 years ago or so, as I changed our mission statement to teach first, sell second. It's very easy. And why I did that is because in this industry, having nearly 200 years experience in the Terminator team, we can actually assist. We can help. If you have a question of a blade's not running right, even if it's not our blade or our tools, those are things that are that relationship needs to strengthen and get bigger when dealing with our final use fabricators. So here's a big falsity in the market. So a lot of people will laugh because they always say that I'm actually pushing sales away when I say this. But I think the general knowledge is there's a major falsity in our industry. And this falsity is good, better, best. There's good tools out there, but I run the best tool. There's no bigger nonsense that I've ever heard. It's absolute nonsense. Is if you look at our big five, you're talking about Diamut, Nikolai, Vincent, Terminator, ADI. Those are the big ones in the US. When you start talking about what names are best known, it always goes to the size of the company. But every one of those tools, guys, has an absolute defining factor of what it's used for. There is no best tool, including Terminator. Terminator, I will tell you right now, we've given you 4 different brands of tools that will be amazing. And I'll talk about a couple at the end that are changing the market. But I will tell you that it all depends back to that sweet spot of culture. If you want a tool that is extremely hard and going to last you a monster amount of time, but you're okay with fighting with maintenance, go to the hardest end of the spectrum. So this is a view that I actually teach our guys, and I use in almost every fab shop I go into. Understand the tooling market. You have from soft tools to moderate tools to hard tools. Who is where and what are they used for? It's those statements I hear of the hard tool lasts the longest, so it must be the best. No, not true. It's also the hardest to maintain. The softest tool must be the best because I can maintain it. You're losing longevity. Mod tools then, Kyle. Those are going to be your best tool because they're right in the middle. And that's not true either. Because if you're running a lot of quartzites, ultra compacts, your mod tool is going to be eaten up faster than you know what to do. So there's a general rule that's not in my notes here. But a general rule is hard stone, soft tool, soft stone, hard tool. And it's just a general rule that's been in industry for 20 plus years. Does it have some facts to it? Sure. Is it the end all be all? No. And this also pertains to how you want to run. So it is all dependent. Do you want to spend more labor on maintenance? Run a harder tool that's going to last long. Do you want that moderate tool where I can maintain them, but it's going to give me good longevity? Is it about speed? So this goes back to that question 3 slides ago of, as we go down this road, guys, you need to make that decision. How are we going to get to the end, and how are you going to choose a tool? Now, I always kind of break off of the good, better, best here, and I think about it this way. So a lot of companies out there, and with a show of hands on screen, how many companies run multiple brands of tools? Yep, you see the hands going up. This is, guys, something so important to talk about, because what you're talking about is this good, better, best. You're running multiple brands of tools. You're also introducing an opportunity of failure. So I tell you this not to convince you to run one brand, but I tell you this that you probably already experienced this. When running, and I'm going to go a little bit in the weeds here, when running an Alpha Cam program, you need to build a style. That style has speeds and feeds to it. If I run let's say a Vincent tool at Terminator parameters, there is no faster way to destroy a Vincent tool because you're running it. It's like running diesel in a gas engine. You have to be able to identify what tool set is being run with what style on Alpha Cam on what CNC. So what this does is it adds a level of complexity to your fabrication. So the most you can, the better, is try to get into a singular parameter set. It eases it on your programmers, it eases it on your fabricators, it eases it on your machines. Because the more simplified, or keep it simple, stupid, that you can make a system with routers, the more you're going to be reducing your cost and increasing your efficiency. So I'll move on. So maintenance. This is one of the first things that I talk about. I chose to put EDMing first. So what EDMing is, and I'll start there because there's a lot of companies that don't EDM. What EDMing is when you get a deep line in a CNC tool, whether it be position 1 or position 4 or 5. When you get a deep line in that tool, some tools are so hard, they're not able to be maintained or dressed to get that line out. So you're forced to EDM. What EDMing is is they actually put it in a coolant tank and they use an electrode to go around and reburn in the correct and original shape of your tool. You can change brand shapes, you can change profile shapes, you can change whatever you'd like. The difference is EDMing is on average, industry average, is about $100 a tool. So I talk about this constantly is when you're looking at saving cost, or you're looking at the fastest ROI you can get on a $3,000 set. If you have a very, very hard set that needs to be EDM'd 1, 2, 3 times, let's start thinking about that. Is the true cost $3,000? It's not. What it is, if you're EDMing that tool 3 times, your true cost of that set of tools is $4,500, not $3,000. So if I came up to any customer on this list right now and I said, you are required to EDM my tools 3 to 4 times, but I'm going to sell you those tools for $2,800. Does that counter the expense of the tool? The answer is no. It is the fact of the matter is looking at true cost is very important. So what we've tried to develop is systems and ways, and dressing is one of them, and you're going to see digital measurement here in another, is actually maintaining your tools on a specified basis. If you do that and you keep the lines off, what I recommend is we've actually come up with a system that you only need, and I say need, some people don't, to EDM 1 time. So when you look at a $3,000 set of tools, you're looking at a singular EDM, which would take you to about $3,500. The hard part is this is where the balance comes in about labor. I need a dedicated person to be able to dress my tools on a daily basis to keep my EDM rate down, which I'm burning more labor cost. You can argue this anyway. There is no right way or wrong way to do this. So when you look at dressing, and I'll go into this in a minute. So dressing your tools, you can average, and I'll just speak on some of the key tools. I ran CNCs. I ran ADI tools. I ran Vincent tools, Diamut. I've run almost every of the top 5 Nikolai, but not very much. I can say this: every tool ranges that should be full dressed, and I'll show you in a minute what full dress means, anywhere between 300 and 600 linear feet. If you have a consistent maintenance program that you are actually dressing your tools, whether it be on a spindle or a segregated dressing machine, you're going to elongate the life of that tool exponentially. I think it's even arguable that a dressing machine to be able to dress tools offline is a better expense and or investment in your fabrication facility than you will ever see a digital measure machine. A measure machine is going to minimize the wear of that tool. Your dressing maintains that tool and shape. It's the quality of edge. So at my last fabrication facility, we got a maintenance program that was phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal that we developed a program called Router to Rack, that we were dressing our tools on an every other day basis. We were a larger shop, and the Flat East, and you're going to see this later, is about 82% of all fabrication facilities. We were doing our Flat East tools every other day. And what that meant is I've heard it called lines or piano lines on tooling was kept to a bare minimum. So we could come off of the router, put it through quality control, and it goes right onto the install rack. There's so many companies out there that will run tooling or run their profiles, and they take those pieces and take them directly to hand polish. And they're breaking it down so they can take off those lines. They're adding labor and time expense. It all goes back to the maintenance program that you develop. So one of the things I'm offering after this, and I'll wait for your individual emails, is with my last company, I actually developed a written tooling program. It's maintenance, sets of tools, count of tools, all of it. And this is something that I can actually send to you that you can bring into your environment. Yes, you're going to have to tweak with size and number of routers, et cetera, but this is where it can actually help your system maintain your tools. Looking at the expense. So let's just talk cost. Your number one expense in a fab shop is your labor. It always will be. It never will not be. It's the variable you can't control. The second expense, and it's a close second, is tooling and equipment and consumables. So if you can elongate the usability and efficiency of your tools, you're going to win exponentially every time of the week. So what I recommend is, you'll see at the bottom of this screen, you're going to see silica carbide, aluminum oxide. It all depends on which silica or stick you're using, but you'll see sticks out there that are 30s and 40s. They're too aggressive on tools, especially with the high-speed tools that are coming out today. They're too aggressive. So my recommendation is nothing lower than a 60 stick on certain brands of tools. And I'll go to this. So this is actually something we developed for our training center. I've been doing this and teaching this for years on dressing 101. And if you look at the screen, it's on position 1, you're actually using 3 sticks. You're going to start with a 60, go to an 80, end on a 120. And if you look at the top image on the left, you're taking mountains to hills, hills to knolls, knolls to plains. If you try with a singular stick or even 1 or 2 sticks to try and get the mountains to plains, you're non-re-exposing diamonds and you're actually going to cause piano lines to come back faster. So it's the time of maintenance that is most important. Be sure to notify or at least acknowledge that when you're going through, and this is training that I offer separately to any fab shop in the US, but when you're doing this, what I already understand and what you need to understand is I might come in and train you this dressing 101. It's the basics. It's why our kids go to kindergarten, elementary, middle, high school, college. Let's start at the beginning. This is 101. This is kindergarten. What you're going to realize is 4 to 6 weeks after I leave, your people are going to be dressing their tools differently because they're going to find their best way. Does that make it wrong? Absolutely not. But the end result is to keep the lines down on your tools, to keep your tools working in peak optimal performance. So yes, you're going to see these are technically Terminator part numbers that I have on this thing. It doesn't have to be about Terminator. You can get sticks from any vendor under the sun. I know BB Industries carries them, Grand Quartz carries them. Almost everyone carries them. It's the grit that's the most important, that you're working through the grits. Now, what this is an example of is this is the best way to dress Terminator ADP and ADP Red Plus tools. There is tricks, guys. So if I speak on ADI, I ran ADI for 7 years. It's a wonderful, wonderful tool. Lasts forever if you maintain it appropriately. Now, one thing I will tell you as a trick is if you see on the right-hand screen, you'll see position 1. It says SCAR 60, SCAR 80, SCAR 120. The best trick that I can teach you right now is use SCAR 60 twice and then go to a 120. Skip the 80. It's too aggressive and too hard of a bond. If you are still having issues with lines, you can actually take a cap full of hydrogen peroxide and pour it into the water that you're soaking your stick. What that does is it actually oxygenates your stick so the stick wears faster and you're able to get the lines out faster. Now be aware, and my guys are going to laugh again, I say this constantly, with every good, there's a bad, and with every bad, there's a good. If you're going to oxygenate a stick or you're going to dress wet, like I highly recommend, you are going to purchase more sticks. Those sticks wear faster. Now, a $8 stick comparative to a $3,000 set of tools, I think it's commonplace that you're going to spend that money in the right spot to maintain that tool. Digital measuring systems. This is one of those, I love them or I hate them. Right now and I'll just kind of rip through my slide because these are the #1 questions I get on a weekly basis, is it needed? Well, let me put it this way. If I were to start a fab shop today with 25 years experience in stone, I would never start a fab shop without one. I always tell this story to everybody out there that when I got my digital measuring system back in 2016 at my last fab shop, I did not believe in it. I did not. I was the naysayer. I said, this is just a paperweight. I can do it better. I can do it faster. And actually, the individual that was setting up our system, and it's one of my favorite stories, said, okay, let me prove it. Let's race. I was pretty good at setting up tools. I could do it between 2 and 3 hours, all depending on the complexity. Was it an adverse edge, a full bull demi, or was it a flatties? Flatties are always your easiest, other than setting Z height. So I said, okay. So we set up 2 sets of tools. And I had a set and he had a set. And I said, okay, ready, set, go. They're set up on cones. I'll race you. And he said, and he looked right at me and he says, is there a good place to eat lunch around here? And I said, wait a minute. No. We're starting. Or do you want to start after lunch? And he said, no, we're starting. You can start. I'm going to go get lunch. And the confidence in him saying that, I'm like, I kind of smiled to myself. I'm like, I got you. Go. Be cocky, be arrogant. Please do. I'll smoke you. The way I used to set up tools is position 4 first. So I went out to the shop right away. I had position 4 set. I went to 3, went to 2. I was setting up 1, and I see him strolling through with a smile and shaking hands with my guys and high five, and he's coming through with his cart of tools, and he's putting them on the machine. I walked over and I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm done." I said, "What do you mean you're done? You just got here." He's like, "You've got a security camera by your measure machine." I said, "I do." And he's like, "I got here 8 minutes ago." I said, "How are you done?" He's like, "It directly connects to the machine. I've already sent the file over. I just need to update your computer, and I'm going to do a test piece." "Where are the test pieces, Kyle?" I said, "Well, there's one right behind you, and I have one." He's like, "All right, keep going." Within a minute, guys, I heard the Z wheel start up on his machine. And I'm still finagling trying to get that position 1 correctly and the eat rates and, taking off that 0.030. And I'm fighting like a son of a gun to adjust the library and size with a caliper. And when position 1 hit, and everyone that owns router knows that I'm telling the truth when you say this, there is the right noise of a position 1. And it was perfect. It was the perfect hit. And then I heard position 2 come in. And we were testing the high-speed tools. It was the first time where, position 2 and 3 could go 300 inches a minute. And when I heard that thing take off at 300 inches a minute, and it sounded perfect, it blew my mind, and I stopped setting up, and I walked over to see it. I couldn't believe it. It took him 8 minutes to set up a set of tools when it took me 2.5 hours. And his setup was better than mine, and I guarantee the longevity of his tool set because of the measurement system. It was a no-brainer. Now, the system that we put out, I know this is a fear. I actually am working with Stoneworld on generational fear of artificial intelligence. There is artificial intelligence coming into these machines now where they can recognize tooling. It actually recognizes the pattern in which you adjust the tools. This is actually a little bit one of those things, those generational breaks, is we grew up, I'm 48 years old, I grew up with, and I no pun intended, the movies of Terminator, looking at artificial intelligence, that it's going to take over the world and this machine's going to stand up and hurt you. This technology is bewildering, that it will, within 3 measurements, remember your set of tools for the life of the tools. It's unbelievable. It directly connects to your CNC. There is no human error. The post-processor connects direct across, and it communicates from your machine to this machine on the tool management, and you will actually see the longevity nearly double of your set of tools. It's pretty amazing. So I can go farther into that. So to keep this non-salesy, I'll go into this. There's really 3 different groups of measure machines. You've got pretty much manual measure machines. They do not connect to your CNC. You still have to manually input, but do they measure the tools? Yes, they do. Will you get an accurate down to the half micron measurement with the lower end machines? And I always use dollars on this, so you got like 25,000 and below. Yeah, it'll measure. Will it measure as accurate? No, it won't. When you get into the optics, that's the middle version, we'll call it cost of about that $50,000, which cutting edge is in. You're going to have an optic, not a laser. And that optic directly connects to the machine, artificial intelligence driven, but it's $50,000. That's a big investment. And then you've got the tops, 70, 75,000, that, they're a very good machine. What separates, really is you got to look at the value you're adding and what you want. So we actually came out with the generation 2 of this machine. It's much more expensive. It does more. It can do double stack cones. It can do 8cm tools. It can. Is it worth the value? Again, that reverts to my second slide or third slide of culture. If that's something you want to promote, great, then you can do it. So really there's 3 different sections to measure machines that you can do, but it's dependent on what you guys want to spend and the benefit you're going to see from it. It doesn't have to be one brand or another brand. Digital measurement is something that is taking over our system. There was a statement, I was actually at a show here about 6 months ago that I love, and they were talking about the advancement of technology and innovation. For companies that avoid it, you can only avoid it for so long, and you will be overrun by the companies that don't avoid it. This is the generation we're in. So if we're avoiding tech, you're avoiding direct measurement, artificial intelligence, bringing in high-end technology to do distinct stones, ultra compacts, quartzites, etc. We've avoided them for so long that the people that don't avoid them are going to surpass the people that are. So it's a dangerous market to be an avoider. Tooling programs. So this is a big one. So I'm going to try my best to keep this one short. So a true tooling program, I'm going to just use the example of Flat East. So a lot of people after this will say, boy, Kyle, that's a really salesy conversation you just had. Again, this has nothing to do with brand. But one thing that you can actually see on this is that when you're promoting a tooling program, what this means is, let's say I have a singular CNC. I'm running a set of TR3, Flat East. When I need to pull that set off the machine to dress it or maintain it, to increase my longevity of that tool, I have two choices. And that's the only set I own. I have to run it adverse edge, or the machine sits stagnant. On average, if that machine is sitting stagnant on a changeover or running a different edge, or it's just sitting, is an average of about $2,500 an hour that you are not making in lost opportunity cost. And that's for the company. Your operators may not mind because that machine is sitting, but I guarantee the company's health, ROI, and efficiency is being majorly affected. So people always say, well, what if I got a second set, Kyle? Okay. So now you got to think about ease of use. So one thing that I always push forward to every fabricator is you have to find, it's called the WIFM, because I have a large background in Lean Six Sigma. And the WIFM is, it means what's in it for me. So this is down to your, smallest employee to your VPs and executives, is you have to find an advantage of them. If you pull a set of tools and I have a backup set, does that mean they immediately have to dress that set of tools? The answer is no. They have that time period between that 300 and 600 linear feet to dress that set of tools and prep that set of tools to cycle back into that CNC. What happens when you hit that 10 to 12,000 linear feet and one of those sets has to go off to EDM? Now you're back to one set. And there you have the inefficiency of that singular set for the 3 to 6 weeks. It's going to be gone to be reshaped. So what I recommend is 3 sets of tools on Flat East. You have the 2 that interchange, let's just call it every 500 feet. When one of those 2 has to go off to EDM, that second set comes in and does an exchange. That system can always be running your Flat East sets. Now, what I recommend if you have 2 CNCs to have 3 sets for both? No. I do not recommend that. You have that third set for the 2 CNCs. So you have 2 sets, and a singular set. That set can work in either one of those CNCs. What that does is it minimizes your cost of tooling that you have to actually own. Does it continue? In here, you'll actually see that each tooling program is identified to your scenario. There's CNC shops, I guarantee on this call right now, that have 8 CNCs. That's a system that you and I can sit down and actually build a program, even if it's not Terminator, to what tool sets that are recommended to have to minimize the loss of use of that router. Now, one thing I highly recommend is adverse tools. Is a lot of people will say, I want my CNC1, CNC2, and CNC3 to be mirror image for tooling. Totally disagree. The reason is any fabricator on this call will tell you that the 80 to 84% is actual for Flat East. If you have 3 sets of full bull tools, you're going to have those tools for 15 years. They're just not going to wear out. My recommendation, if I see a multiple CNC tool, 3 CNCs and above, is have 2 workhorses set up with Flat East. And the third one have Flat East and your adverse edges. So that you can revert to a singular CNC when those one-offs come in of the half bull, the demi, the full bull, the 3/8 bevel. These are things that you can utilize that one machine for, and you can minimize the tools that are purchased. Again, right back to the beginning of this conversation, you can buy any tools that you'd like. You can. But these are recommendations of why spend more on tooling when you don't have to. Tooling is the second greatest expense in a shop. At the bottom of this is where I'm going to drive into a little bit off the wall here. So you got porcelains, Decton, Duralusa, Liptech, Neolith, ultra compacts that people have avoided. All of my fabricators out there, this is very important to hear. Quartzites, more people, and I'm from the Midwest, have avoided these substrates or materials forever. There's also shops that have dedicated, there's several in the Midwest that have dedicated to almost solely quartzite, to almost solely ultra compacts, because a lot of the fabricators avoid them. So in the beginning, I told you the unique perspective to take a fabricator and put them at the top spot of a vendor company. For the last 3 years, our innovation has focused on the customer. These are things that were a huge avoidance for me when I fabricated. When I saw ultra compacts come through and I saw Decton, I was like, oh, you pick it up and it just looks like an accordion. Now you've got the ultra thins that are 0.6 and 1.2 and 1.6 that are so hard to fabricate. And you could never do it on your CNC. You know, even putting a miter on or dropping a standard profile on, you couldn't do it. Now you can. There is tools that we released in 2020, January of 25 or 24, I'll have to talk to my guys, that are called ADP Element. They are made and directed at 1.2, 1.6, and 2 cm to run porcelains, Decton, Duralos, Elliptech, Neolith on your router. Now, it's not as easy as just run it like granite. It's not. Your cut placement is different. Everything is different. So what I highly recommend is shoot me a note after this and we can walk through it. The tool sets are actually less expensive than a standard granite or quartz tool set because of the tools are smaller. And what we're trying to do is keep the cost of those tools at a bare minimum for you guys. As of this year, and I'm very proud of it, is Quartzite Tools, Evolution. This was released in January. So we currently have a shop in northern Minnesota, central north Minnesota, that has done the on-site R&D. That he ran 11 jobs of Taj Mahal. And you notice, guys, that I put an OG set on here to show that you can run Taj on an OG. You can do it. Now, this is single pass. I will be honest with you, remember, good, bad, bad, good. The breakers have not released yet. We have not gotten to that point. I wanted this tool set to release at Tice in Las Vegas. So right now what we're doing is using a very soft bond, the old Zoom breakers, to get you at a 45 on Taj Mahal. Still give me 2 passes. But the position 1 is at 60 inches a minute. 2, 3 is at 250 inches a minute. All single pass. And position 4 is at 70 inches a minute. And it goes into polishing a finished product. So what is the advantage of a fabricator? You can run quartzite on your router with adverse edges at the speed and efficiency you're running granite and quartz. This has been released, so I'm not going to mention names because I don't want to step out of proprietary, but I will say this. We have 2 very good partners that we're working with that are OEM router manufacturers that are supporting and want to back this tools, that they're giving an option to actually get a set of these tools when you buy a new router. This is something that, guys, this is what I was saying about innovation and technology. For those that take advantage of the new innovation and technology that enters the system, this is going to be massive going forward. Really looking at the innovation as the foundation to your success is understanding your maintenance, understanding your EDM, understanding care of your tools, what to purchase and what not to purchase. I will never forget, I know Alex Birch is my Midwest sales rep. One of the stories I always tell is we went into a fab shop in Des Moines, Iowa, and they ordered 5 sets of tools. And I said, you don't need 5. And I argued with them to bring them down to 3 sets because they needed 3. We walked out and Alex looked at me and he said, Kyle, you just talked us out of 2 tool sets of sale. And I said, Alex, I would rather that company know that we stood up for them and sold them the tools they needed and not the tools they wanted. Because if I just openly sell the tools they wanted, it reduces the health of the fabricator. Our job is to make you guys more profitable, to sell you what you need, not what you order, what you need, not what you think you need. So the lifeblood of efficiency is utilizing tools to its maximum linear foot, is to standard tool sets on porcelain. There's a question in the chat. So I'll answer that. Let me stop just for a minute. I'll go back. So standard tool sets, you can get nearly any profile for porcelain. And when I say nearly, when you're looking at 1.6 or 1.2 or 2 cm, whoever asked the question, your standard TR3, can you get it? Yes. Because it's so thin, we actually made it a TR2, so it actually looks like a flat east because it's so thin. You can get crescent, you can get bull, you can get OG, you can get any of these out there. One of the good, bad, bad, good, I'm going to keep going back to it. One of the biggest things to know and recognize, guys, is Decton is still 95% non-impregnated color. So when you put a profiled edge on Dectin, you could actually be hurting your situation because you have that milky gray to a textured veneer top. It is a beautiful material, and I absolutely love Dectin, but just be aware that you're selling it appropriately. Can you use granite and quartz tools on porcelain? I would not. The reason I would not is because what you're doing is you're taking about 1,000 feet of longevity off of a porcelain tool. If you do choose to use them, and a lot of people are going to try and minimize that tool set, it's the same thing with evolution for the quartzite tools, guys. Can you use the quartzite tools on granite quartz? Yes. Yes, you can. Would I? No. It has been designed for it. So it's the same thing as that I'll ask you is, when you're hammering in a nail, would you use the butt of a screwdriver or would you go get a hammer? Use the appropriate tool for the appropriate material. A lot of the complication comes in, guys, of how many tool sets should I own? This is why it goes back to one of those first slides. You need to sit down and identify the culture of what you're going to do and what you're going to invest in. Don't just blindly invest. I'll finish up this slide and then I'm going to open up to questions. Training is the lifeblood of all shop success. A lot of people believe that training only goes down. There's no bigger falsity in our industry. Training goes down and up. If your executive leadership does not understand what you're doing, I highly recommend that you share. If they don't understand some of the challenges that you're dealing with on the router or purchasing or equipment or delivery issues, back orders, the more that we can train up and down in a shop, the better unit you're going to be. Development of technology. Stay up on tech. Get to know your reps. They're going to know what innovation is coming out. The one thing I'm very proud about Continental Diamond is that we are listening to our customers. I am not going to innovate products that I want to sell. I'm going to innovate products that you are asking me to innovate to stop some of the heartache you've been working with. Follow the innovation and advancement. We are watching the market and industry, and as we go through this amazing, sarcastic, global economy that we're in, and the challenges that we face on a daily basis, guys, if you're not taking advantage of the best utilization of tech, this is where, honest to God, you're going to go down the line and you miss an opportunity. So I'm going to open it up to Q&A. Right now, it looks like we have about 16 minutes left. So anybody out there that has questions, we can use the chat. We can use just open questions. Feel free to take off your or unmute yourself and ask a question.
Like we have one in the chat. What would you recommend for best practices for tooling and speed feed when cutting phenolic compact like Formica compact or similar? They've been a challenge for us to make profitable.
Yeah, so it is, and it's one of those we'll call it mod hybrid products. Everyone out there now, you've seen a very big blast in the last, call it 3 years, of different products coming out. I know there's a glass-based product. You've got your filament products, and as you come out doing it, what do I recommend for a tooling program? It's going to be very similar to granite and quartz. That material is in some cases harder on tools than others. It's even some of it, it all depends on exactly the brand or the influence that you're using, can actually eat up your position 1 a heck of a lot faster, where normally in granite and quartz tooling, your position 4 is at risk. So to put this out there to you guys so you understand it, let's talk about the thickness of bond and diamond. And I'm just going to use, this isn't actual, but it's close to as that I can explain. A position 1 is 3/16 thick from the body to the end of the bond. A position 2 is an 1/8, a position 3 is a 16th, and position 4 is a 1/64th. So on a position 4, that's why you always lose and get lines on your position 4 first. It's because it's the thinnest bond and thinnest diamond. You have about 5 times the diamond in your position 4 than you do in your position 1, but it all depends on the size of the diamond. So as you're dressing that position 4, you'll see on the dressing that I highly recommend keeping your dressing sticks very high on the 240, 320, 400. Because if you go into a position 3 or 4 with a 60, you'll tear right through that bond and hit metal. Your position 4 shot. So what do I recommend? It's very similar. It's going to be a rotational set, but I do recommend dressing quicker, where you're dressing at about that 300 to 350 the linear feet versus letting it go to 600. It has the abrasive technology to actually hurt your tools quicker. If you're using a softer filament type of material like you're talking, you can elongate. It all depends on the brand or causation of the breakdown of that substrate. If it's a softer version, then you can elongate to we're going to call it 600, 700 linear feet. Approximately how much material do you remove? Dressing, it all depends. And here's where people get frustrated, is there is no clear answer on this. If I stated, let's stabilize, and I'll answer this question. I'll stabilize this. We didn't ask position 1, position 2, position 3, position 4. So how much material do you remove? It's kind of a standard practice that I tell people, you're removing a couple hundred linear feet of life from that tool set every time you dress. So if you stay on that stabilized basis, I'm just going to give it a round number and say 500 linear feet. Every 500 linear feet you're going to dress. You're reducing about 200 linear feet of life of the 25,000 to 30,000 linear life. If you're using digital measure, you're reducing about 200 every time. So why do I say that? When it comes down to it, it depends on if you let that guy, let's say your dressing day is a Friday and your guys are tired and they've worked overtime that week. And they say, you know what, guys, let's just dress them next week. And now your lines go deeper. Are you still taking that 200 feet off? No. You're actually taking a lot more because those lines are going to go deeper, high diamond, low diamond. I'm going to pause that and answer that question for John here in a minute. You're actually taking more off. So you're looking at that 400 plus linear feet. You can overdress tools, and I don't even know. Stephen actually said that. You're absolutely right. You can overdress tools. And that's why I show those interests on when looking in your tooling using the appropriate dressing stick. If you overdress your tools, you can overdress just as quickly as you can underdress. There is that sweet spot. I talk about dressing, and one of the things with dressing is it's a feel. It's an art. It's a skill. It's not just a guy that's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not. And that's why I say there's tricks to every brand, and we'll call it matrix or bond metal. Because if you're using Terminator's way on a Vincent tool, you could actually overdress that tool very quickly. So this is why I truly push out to all of you guys, reach out to your reps. Have somebody guide you through it. If you're not getting the advice that you need from your tooling rep, whether it be Vincent or Diamut or Nikolai or Terminator, reach out to someone else. There is knowledge out there that can help you through it and advice. I missed a couple questions, Joe. Can you help me out there?
Yep. On softer sets of tools, the PO or P0 always wears out and needs to be replaced around 6 to 9K LF. Should I just be replacing P0 or should I send the whole set in for EDM at that point?
That's dependent on what you want to do. My opinion is what I would do as a fabricator is I'd replace position 0, is because you want to get the longest life out of your tools. So I'll make a very quick example. So I was actually as a sales rep for Terminator, gosh, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. I was actually down in Omaha at one of our partner shops. They had sink tools. Very common problem that everyone's going to think about is they lose their shape. And they don't last the 30,000 linear feet, guys. No matter what anyone says, they're going to last between, we'll call it 7 and 15,000 if you're really taking care of them. And I looked over at a CNC and he had 8 positions. And I looked at it and looked at it. He's like, you look confused. I said, it doesn't make any sense. Why do you have 8 positions? Why would you slow that down more, adding a position? And what he had a brazed position 0. Now, I'm only giving this as an example. I know there's different ways to put that position 0 in position 2 or position 0. And what he was doing was he was actually breaking the top profile and bottom profile with a braze tool for $100 and minimizing the wear on his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what he was doing was the tool set looked brand new, and he had 13,000 linear feet on that set of tools. So there is so many tricks to routers that you can add a tool or utilization of Z wheels. I ran 3 Z wheels on every one of my CNCs of the exact same Z wheel. People thought I was nuts. I used 1 for seams. That was perfect. I used the second for profiles once it started to apple core. So when that seam Z would start to wear, I'd move it to profiles. When it really got apple core, I moved it to wall scrubs. Wall scrubs is going to be covered by backsplash or tile. What's the difference? It took away the maintenance and labor I needed to dress that Z wheel. So when utilizing, you got looking at that change, and everyone says it, Kyle, it's just going to add cost to my CNC one time. Because you're only replacing 1 Z wheel at a time. You're replacing your seam Z and moving the others into other positions. You reduce all maintenance. And so you're reducing labor. Any other questions in the chat right now?
There was one more. I think we touched on the overdressing issue. Are you recommending a 3 to 500 linear feet on all diameter sizes, or scaled based on 20, 40, 60 millimeter, etc.?
That's all going to vary. So I would say this. So when you're talking 20 and 40 mils, those are considered sink tools. So the 40 mil tool on a 20 or 22 mil shaft on that cone, it runs at a higher RPM, or you look at your 20 mils are going to run at a much different RPM. So it's percent of contact to the tool. Okay, that's where you stabilize that 3 to 500 linear feet. That's on 60s, 80s. And I would even elongate, and I will tell you right now, guys, everyone has their opinions. I'm not a fan of 120s. So let's just talk about 20s through 80s. What I was talking about at 3 to 5 is the 60, 80s. It's your profile tools. You are going to have to dress your 20s and 40s more often. So your 20s is what I would do is about every 150 linear feet. What does that mean? That's roughly about every 15 to 26 is what I would do. It's very, very easy to see your piano lines pop up. So internally, your water, your substrate, what you're running, your materials are going to depend on how many sinks that you do. I did a ton of quartz at my shop and a little bit of natural stone. I was about 70-30 for quartz to granite, and we rarely did quartzite. With that being said, that is all dependent on how often you dress your tools. If you're getting heavy lines at 150 linear feet on your 20 mils, back it up to 120 to dress your tools. If you're not getting any lines on your 40s and you're at 300 linear feet, that means your digital setup or digital measurement or manual setup is perfect. What you can also do, and this is probably going to cause other people to ask more questions, is called a micro dress. So this is why I highly recommend having a dressing machine out by your machines, is you can actually pull a set of tools off while it's running a code and do a micro dress. Let's say you're due on Friday for a full dress, like I was talking about. You can run the last 2 sticks or the last stick to remove minor lines just in a quick 3-minute dress of those tools. So you're going to use the 120, the 240, the 320, and the 400, 4 sticks on that set. And what you're going to do is you take those finite piano lines and you remove them back down to planes. And what that does, it elongates the need and necessity to do that full dress, and it keeps your tools perfect. Because just like anything else, guys, just like the loss of tension in metal, once you have a line or a divot or a valley, your stone is going to identify that and drive it deeper. So if the longer you can keep those hills and valleys down, the longer you have in between your variants of dressing. What else we got?
One more came in. It says, what edge finish is acceptable? Is there a rule of thumb on the severity of lines? Can you catch your fingernail on them?
So, okay. So is there a rule of thumb? I can tell you what I've done. Okay. Like I said, a lot of this is opinion-based, guys. So when I started and I got our first, we had Park. So I had 2800, came in 2016. I immediately, and this will show you the journey that I'm sure most of you guys have been on. I immediately said, we can't have any lines because we were a hand polish shop prior. What I found is that I actually did 6 tests, 6 profile tests, and I set them out in our showroom. And I said, what would you as a customer accept for your home? And we just laid them out. And what we found was it was about that 550 linear feet. And because in each region, they will accept a certain line or not. The rule of thumb is if you can catch it on your fingernail, it's too deep because you're going to be able to see it horizontally. So one of the big falsities is, well, I can see it vertically. You will. Anything at a 45-degree angle to light, you're going to see that, even that small finite piano line, and you scratch your fingernail across it, you won't see it. The minute I lay that horizontal and your refraction rate of light changes, you don't see it. So that's always going to be between that 400 and 500 linear foot length, in my opinion, on a profile. But if you can catch your fingernail on it, it's way too far gone. This is where you have a problem. If you can catch your fingernail on it, guys, when I gave you that stabilized basis of when you dress, you're losing about 200 feet. When you get to the point of actually feeling the piano lines, you're going to reduce more than 200 linear feet. You're going to be at that 300 to 400 linear feet because you actually have to grind that matrix and bond down. The importance, and I was for not to say this during the dressing slide, the importance of the last stick. Everyone's like, well, Kyle, it really doesn't do much. what you're doing is re-exposing diamond. So when the question came up, Joe, on the overdressing, this is one of those things. You can overdress your tools because what it does, it takes down, when a tool glazes, it isn't, the diamonds aren't wearing out. They fall out of the bond. So when you hit it with a dressing stick, and silica oxide and aluminum oxide is actually made to reduce or remove metal, you actually are removing metal on the 6080. On that 120, yes, it's removing a little bit, but what it's doing is it's taking off the caps on those exposed diamonds. So when you put that CNC tool back on your router, there's exposed diamonds to actually start cutting immediately, and you're not removing more bond, sparks, flames, etc. You guys know what I'm talking about on that initial. So the third stick is probably your most important stick, because you actually can take a positional on 2 and even a 3, walk outside in UV, hold it out right in front of you, and use the sunlight or a UV light, and you will see a refraction rate on your tool. That diamonds are re-exposed before you go back and put them on the CNC. If you see a dull plate with no diamond exposure, it's going to be a wild ride for the first 10 feet on your CNC. It's going to blow sparks because you're trying to cut stone with diamond, and that's going to do nothing but cause damage to the tool, the cone, finger grippers, spindle, Z-bearings. It's just be careful.
Hey, well, 2 more questions. What is your issue with the 120 millimeter wheels is the first one.
All right, I knew someone was going to bring that up. All right, so this is where I've been judged in the past, Joe, so I'm going to answer this. What do I have an issue with 20 mil or 120 mil tools? It was one of the first choices that I made with Terminator Diamond to remove 120 mil tools from production. And the reason is if you think, and this is going to get a little bit deep in the weeds, an average 80 mil tool weighs between 2 and 3 pounds. When you think about the size and diameter of a cone comparative to an 80 millimeter tool, when I'm running that tool at 5,500 RPMs on stone, the outside of that tool is running at 5,500 RPMs. If I make that a 120 mil tool, the outside is actually running faster than 5,500 RPMs. And I would challenge anybody here to prove it to me that the big sales factor, and Terminator was guilty of this too. The big sales factor was, I need to run a 120 mil tool because I want a longer longevity. A 120 mil tool set is between $5,000 and $6,000 compared to an 80 mil set at $3,000. The couple thousand linear feet that you're getting extra due to a 120 mil tool, not worth the $2,000 you're paying extra. There's one. There's on business side. Now I'm going to go on mechanical side. If I take a 2-pound deal and I put it on my hand and I go for a walk, I will feel that weight on my hand. That's your cone, that's your finger grippers, that's your spindle. Now I take a 6-pound weight or a 5-pound weight at a 120 mil tool and I spin it. Let's say by chance the eccentricity is off or center on cone is off. Now I've got a wobble. Which tool is going to do more damage to my spindle faster? That 120 mil tool every day of the week and twice on Thursdays. The problem with it is due to the advantage in the late 90s and early 2000s to that 120 mil tool, the big sales factor was it lasts longer. It actually is causing damage to your spindle, your Z-bearings, your spindle center, your X and Y, your backlash. When you start losing water unions and they start leaking, you're talking about, for that couple thousand linear feet you're getting extra for that tool and the advanced wear you have on your spindle, ask yourself that same question when you're replacing a spindle for 16K every 3 years. That's my argument.
Okay. Another question is, we have never bought a true dressing machine. We have a variable speed wood lathe and a cone adapter. Is there any difference if it's variable speed?
All depends. So some lathes, and we actually have a shop in Iowa, and I'm not going to mention his name, that actually converted a $25,000 metal lathe that had a 0.001 tolerance. So what do I mean by that? So all independent dressing machines will actually set on the side, and there always is going to be some wobble to the tool, right? So the tolerance in your spindle, we're going to say OEM standard is between 1 thou or 0.001 and 0.002. So what the trick is out there is to get a dressing machine or an individual lathe dressing machine, and I know almost every company on this under the sun sells one. The question that has to be asked is, don't lead them down, and this includes my staff, so don't give them a heads up. is what is the tolerance of your dressing machine? So if your lathe has less than a thou to 2 thou variable in shake, it's a good dressing machine. The difference is you're going to see some brands out there will advertise 0.004, 0.006. What happens is that tool is wobbling. So as you dress that tool with the stick, it's actually wearing it in the shape of a football. And as you then put that back on a lower tolerance, your CNC spindle at 0.001 or 2, it's actually going to wear at a spindle where you actually have ebbs and flows and overwear points, burn spots, which if your lathe is not within that tolerance or you don't know, it can be tested. You can test the tolerance on your lathe, but you can also look at how your tools are wearing on the CNC. If you're seeing a blue and black color on your CNC, which means your tools are actually wearing, you'll see zebra stripes on them sometimes, that it is actually wearing your tools due to your dressing oblong. And with that being said, this is where I fell in love in 2016 with digital measurement, is you can actually see a picture and the high spots and low spots to eccentricity and how it's sitting on that cone. It's running true. So was there a second part of that question, Joe?
No second part of it. There is another question after.
Okay.
Forgive me if I mess this up. What is the best indicator to know when to set FO tools for DEM?
Yeah, EDM. So it's okay. What is the indicator? It's a lot of times, guys, what you'll do is you'll put, I'm going to answer this in 3 ways quickly. So one is looking at that. It all depends on how hard you run these tools, anywhere between 8,000 and 12,000 linear feet. If you don't know how to calculate that, or your machine does not have an what's called operational output, or you don't have, the second way I'll explain is digital measurement, it'll actually equate for that linear foot. The other way to look at it, guys, is the adjustment to nominal. When your tools, you'll know it's time to send to EDM when your tools actually start to open. When you are actually losing, let's just use a TR6 or a TR3. What that means, or I'll even use my phone, is the R6 and R3, just so we're on the same page, it's 6 mils back on the top and 6 mils down on the side and connect the dots. That creates a 6 mil. So TR6 is the same top and bottom, right? When you actually see your TR6 turn into a TR8, or it can go to TR4 because it's actually opening to the point where it's hitting that internal R0 or R1. I'm getting way too far in the weeds. That's an indicator. The other indicator, and this is one, and I'll speak on 4 of the top 5, is if you dress your tools and you know you got a good dress, and within 1 to 200 linear feet, your lines pop back up. So this is an example that I talk to people about is, have you ever seen the show Forged in Fire? This is, you will actually see them overheat steel and it becomes fragile. This is the exact same thing with your CNC tools. Whether you believe it or not, yeah, it's dumping 13 to 16 gallons per minute of water and it's keeping everything ice cold. No, it's not. You're using steel and diamond to cut stone. It is hot. So when your tool heats up and cools down so many times, the outside of that metal actually becomes bad and it becomes fragile. So you will actually see the key indicator is if, like, within 100 feet, 200 feet, your lines are back, it's time for an EDM. The metal on the outside of that tool is bad. It's been burnt. I highly recommend send it in for that one EDM to scathe back or electrode back that metal to remove all that bad metal to get back to the primary metal. That way it's going to slow the need for dressing. It's going to bring your shape back to primary and you get right back in the system. Hopefully that answers the question.
Okay, that was the last question I have so far.
Okay, so I'm going to challenge, looks like we are overtime, but I'm going to challenge my team. Those, I know Alex is here, Andrew's here, I saw Ed. Do you guys have anything you think that should be shared with this group? Because I talk a lot with you guys and I only had an hour.
I wanted to bridge off of John Roberts here. The softer set of tools, the P0 always wears out, needs to be replaced at 6,000 to 9,000 feet. I want to bridge off of that. If you, let's say you crash a individual metal or a polisher, should you be replacing your full set, like let's say a full set of metals or a full set of polishers, or replacing one individual tool?
It's a great question, Alex. So this is something, guys, that I push to our team constantly. It all depends on how far that tool set is worn. So you got to think about a tool set, those position 1 through 7. And some people use 6, some people use 8. It all depends on what you do, right? It's your culture. Consider it a family. So just because one of your sons at a position 3 crashes, can I just take a brand new position 3 and plop it in? In most cases, up until about 50% wear, the answer is yes. You can plop it in. When you are at about that 50% wear, be very aware of what you're doing, because if you just drop a position 3 in, you got to think of the other family members have been worn. They're actually wider and more open, more burnt metal. So now you're dropping this brand new position 2 or 3 or 4 into the system. What you're actually doing is reducing your ROI and cost and longevity of that tool. Within 3 jobs, that brand new tool is going to be just as worn as the rest of your tools. So you're only getting about half life out of that second tool that you're dropping in. What I recommend is if you have a tooling program and you're approaching that 50% life, let's be honest, guys, you want to get the most linear or longevity out of every tool. What I highly recommend is if you have a backup set, EDM, get it back to the original shape and replace. Then you're going to get a longevity that's going to stabilize the standard across the entire set. To answer your second question very quickly, Alex, polishers, excuse my language, but the polishers are kind of the bastard stepchildren of the family. Really what happens is in a polisher, polishers are very finicky and they're going to open and close. Some are going to bloom, some are going to wear faster than others. It all depends on if you're running a ceramic or a resin. It is very dependent on your system and how you're running. My opinion is looking at the cost of, roughly that $200 for a polisher. Would I EDM my set for $500 to replace the polisher? Absolutely not. It's not worth the cost and value to your set to save a $200 polisher. I would run that polisher and then elongate to, what is a polisher set going to give you? 3,000 to 5,000 linear feet. You're going to get rid of those stepchildren and bring in 3 more to sub with your other tool sets. Hopefully that makes sense. It's a great question. Anyone else? Any other questions, Joe? Are we good?
I think we're good.
All right. So for everybody still on the call, I saw we lost some. For everyone still on the call, again, I can send out, or Joe is going to send out the attendee list. With that being said, if you want to continue the conversation, you have individualized questions that you don't want to ask here, please, God, reach out, because I'm going to tell you guys right now, I don't care if you run Terminator. I don't care. There's too many questions out in the field that we are not asking because we assume we know. This is why it's always find a reference. Now, I will tell you, I don't know it all. I learn stuff new every day of the week. With that being said, I love these things because what I do is I actually learn more from the questions you ask and challenge us in the innovation of our next tool sets. What can we make better? This is a great opportunity for all of us. So if there's nothing else, I will thank each and every one of you for participating today. I will look forward to your emails, phone calls, and setting individual Teams meetings. And if this was good reviews, please let ISFA know. I really do appreciate everything you guys have done.
Thank you guys so much for joining us for our next webinar.